Welcome to Moments of Faith. This is Pastor Hugh Kelly of Fellowship Baptist Church. In the past, we've been talking about abiding in Christ and what that concept looks like. We want to go a little bit deeper again today and talking about that and discussing what is it really to abide in Christ. And that is a commandment, by the way. It's not a suggestion. We're commanded to abide in Christ. And I want to help us understand that. In John chapter 13 and 14, Jesus is talking to his disciples in the upper room just prior to going to the cross. And he's telling them some things that he would like for them to know and implement in their lives that would help us today. And he says as he was sitting there with the disciples, in chapter 13, it said, "Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel with which he was girded." Then down in verse 12, it says, "So when he had washed their feet and taken his garment and reclined at the table again, he said to them, 'Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, for I am. Even I then, the Lord and the teacher, wash your feet. You also ought to wash one another's feet. For I give you an example that you should do as I did to you.'" And then he says in verse 34 of chapter 13, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another even as I've loved you, that you also love one another. By this will all men know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." We've been talking about fleshing out abiding in Christ and the golden rule, do unto others you'd have them do unto you. And what does that look like? We're told to consider others above ourselves and more important than we are. And how do we do that? How would you go about washing other people's feet? Well, in Philippians, Paul gives us a clue. He says, "Do nothing," in chapter 2, "from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interest, but also for the interest of others." And he says, "For it is God who is at work in you, both to will and do of his good pleasure. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, so that you may prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent children of God, above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you appear as lights in the world." When we abide in Christ and we consider others more than ourselves, and we do all things without grumbling, can you imagine Christians that would get up in a day without grumbling or disputing, complaining, and look at others people's interest? He says here that you proved yourselves to be blameless and innocent children of God, and above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation. We always want to talk about how crooked and perverse and how bad everything's going, but what are we doing to change it in our world? We can't help what's happening in other parts of our country, in these cities, where vandalism and murdering is going on, but we can do something about it where you are today. Abiding in him means helping others, washing their feet, doing things without murmuring or disputing or grumbling, and consider people greater than yourself. If that would be our purpose today, what a difference. We would shine as lights. My friends, this is a dark world. People need hope, and we are the hope of the world. We who know Jesus Christ can share him with this world simply by doing these little things to others, which is agape type love. That's a self-sacrificing love that Jesus gave himself for you and I. Could you give yourself for others? Maybe someone in your family, maybe your husband or your wife or your children, the people you work with, the people you go to school with. Think of the difference it would make and the joy that we could bring into our world. God bless you again, and thank you for listening today.